Topic number 3 comes from the Kinda Funny forums, from our friend SF_likes hiking.
If I wanted to get to the Kinda Funny forums, where would I go?
You go to kindafunny.com/forums or kindafunnyforums.com. It's really your choice. Both work. Same place. What's happening to you?
I'm being sexy.
If that's the definition of sexy, you...
Got some issues.
Yeah.
So I also like that this guy's name is SF_likes hiking, because obviously that's Sean Finnegan.
Sean Finnegan likes hiking. Is it Sean?
I'm going to assume that this is Sean Finnegan himself.
Bro.
It's definitely not, but I hope. Greetings and salutations, everybody. It might be Colin.
It's not me.
Moonlighting as Sean Finnegan.
I don't ghostwrite.
This is somebody who is just literally a blank slate before he ran into Kinda Funny content, and now he's just made himself out of it.
A while ago, Greg did the video, Persona 4 changed my life. So I was wondering if Colin and Tim had a game they felt that way about. Also, if Greg had another game like that. I wouldn't leave him out of a question. His ego would get mad at me.
Fuck you, Sean Finnegan. Can't believe you're getting this ego thing to take.
Huh?
It took a long time, but the ego thing's finally taken.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
It happened. It happened.
You guys want to go? I got plenty to say.
Go.
I mean, so for me, Persona 4 would be the most recent game that changed my life. It's from the Aaron Fitzgerald interview where we talked about it and yada, yada, yada. Going back then, chronologically, game before that, well, I'll start at the very beginning and I'll go forward, all right, to catch up to Persona. Number 1, and it's funny, but it's Ghostbusters Sega Master System, because it was the first time I ever was cognizant of video games, being walked around Toys R Us, big Ghostbusters fan, going to buy real Ghostbusters toys with mom, probably a new Proton Pack, or my third, and she took me down the video game aisle, and I caught the logo on the box, turned, put my finger on the glass, and I was like, what is that? And she's like, that's a video game. And I'm like, I want that. It's Ghostbusters. I'm the Ghostbusters. I need that. I want that. I want that for my birthday. And they, for my birthday, then later on, Uncle Mike gave me the Master System, and Mom and Dad gave me the game, or vice versa. I forget.
I hope it's vice versa.
Yeah, right. My parents are like, you buy him the expensive system. We'll buy him the expensive game. You're probably right. That makes more sense. So like that set me on this course, right? And granted, I'm sure eventually I would have run into Mario, and then maybe it would have been a different
What's
course.
up, Mario?
Hey, man. And he's like, oh, Mamma Mia, try it as a video game. I climb in your bed. I touch your joystick. Anyways.
Damn.
Mario. And then number 2 would be Metal Gear Solid. And I've told that story once too, so I don't mean to say the same things over and over again, but it came around when I was getting to that point with my N64 where it was like, games are great and I like this, but is this all they are? Is this all it's ever going to be? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I'm shooting stuff in it, but it's like, it's just gameplay, you know what I mean? Which is great, but like, I didn't even know what I wanted, you know what I mean? And then when I traded in the N64 and bought the PlayStation, that night Poe and I went out to Blockbuster and got Army Men Sarge's Heroes or whatever, whichever
Good
PlayStation
Lord.
1 it was, and Metal Gear. I was like, oh, right, I remember EGM talking about this one. And we played Army Men for 30 minutes, we're like, this sucks, and put in Metal Gear and played it for the next like 6 hours.
Yeah.
And that was the moment of like, I will be with this forever. This is growing up with me. This is like a movie. This is giving me emotions and feels and telling me a story. Like, this is a hobby or whatever you want to call it. Again, like I've had years now to put those emotions I didn't understand at the time into words, right? But this is something that is growing with me and will be with me the rest of my life. It's not always just going to be Mario hitting a question mark block. Not that I hate that, but you know what I mean? Like there's more to it than just shallow gameplay.
Colin.
I mean, obviously, like the seminal franchises were really important to me: Mario, Mega Man, Castlevania, Zelda, all that kind of stuff. But the games that actually stick out to me as being like life-changing kind of events for me, Kid Icarus was probably the first one. I remember Kid Icarus being unlike anything I'd ever seen before in my young age at that time, and I was used to playing Mario and games like that. And I remember when we got Kid Icarus, I was like, this is. I understood this game was hard. This game was unique. It was fun. It was deep. I love the dungeons at the end of it. When you do 4 stages, you go to like this dungeon where we were basically like making maps for them and stuff like that. And it was a memorable and fascinating game for me because I was always surprised that it never really was revisited, with the exception of the Game Boy sequel until a few years ago. And then Super Mario World and The Link to the Past were really, really, really important games as I grew up, because that's when I was already in love with the NES and in love with games at that time, but that was when I became an independent gamer, as opposed to being like kind of my brother playing games and him introducing me to them, where I was like, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I want. And that's when he and I kind of splintered off, and he was playing Street Fighter 2 and he was playing Ranma Half and all these kinds of games. And I was playing, Zelda and not that he didn't play those either, and Mario and those kinds of games. So those were like really, really super important games to me. And I'll say too, Final Fantasy VII was a really huge game for me. Because as a role-playing game nerd growing up and being young and being even young for some of these games, Final Fantasy VII was the moment when I realized that role-playing games were going mainstream. And that was a good thing, and I'm happy that it happened. And it also was the game that made me get a system like PS1. I wasn't going to go to PS1. I was going to be an N64 person and continue my Nintendo fandom. And that was such a blessing because the PS1 was so superior to the N64, and I would have never known if some of these games didn't hit, and then I would have never been introduced to Wild Arms, and I would have never introduced to Tales of Destiny and Thousand Arms and all these games that I really loved growing up. So I would consider those the really seminal games. And then I would say most recently, like a game that really blew my mind that I didn't expect that I was going to love was Grand Theft Auto 3. That was unlike anything I'd ever played before or since, and was really a profoundly special game that proved to me real. Like, there were games that I would take a break from the role-playing game kind of shit from, and the strategy and tactics kind of games from. So like Metal Gear Solid is a good example. I'd play that, or Parasite Eve, which I really loved. But Grand Theft Auto 3 was the game that showed me, I'm like, you don't really only love role-playing games after all. You really love this other shit too. And then it exposed me to playing games like, like shooters, which I really wasn't playing, and exposed me to some just more third person kind of platformers, which I fucking definitely didn't like, at the time. My whole world was role playing games and side scrollers, and that is still much of my world today. But there was more to it than that. And GTA 3 really showed me that you don't have to just step away from these genres you like when a Zelda game comes out, or when a great new side scroller comes out that you like, or you're fucking impatiently waiting for new Mega Man games. Like, there's other shit out there too that isn't so neatly defined by these few genres you've spent so much time with. And so those are the games that hit me as super, super important. And maybe more recently BioShock, but that just showed me that a game can be so much more than a game. And BioShock's really, really special. So I would draw the line there. Those aren't necessarily my favorite games.
Yeah, but that's not the question.
Yeah.
It's which ones changed your life, because some of the
BioShock
ones on my list are definitely not the best games. Yeah. But I feel like no one's going to be surprised by anything that I have to say about this.
Pokemon?
Obviously, it's like Mario, Pokemon, duh. Like, those are the things that changed my life when I was a little kid. Like, they made me realize why I love that I love video games. Not why, but that I do. Really kind of thinking back to the key moments, though, like, obviously Smash Brothers is, no matter which game it is, I've told the story a bunch of times, but like, that game kind of represents to me like who my friends are throughout my life, because I grew, whether it's 64, Melee, Brawl, or the one on Wii U now, it's like whoever my closest friends are at that time, those are the people that I'm playing that with. And there's been like a core group of those guys that have been through all of them, and they'll just stick with me. And it's been really cool to see that game franchise grow as I grow, and see, just not only the games getting bigger and better and all this other stuff, but just like the fact that I still have just as much fun playing it. And a lot of times that has less to do with the game and more to do with we're all together having a lot of fun together. And that changed my life in that way, and that it made me who I am based on who I hang out with and all that stuff. The game that changed my life the most has to be Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, because that game influenced who I am. When I first played it, I must have been 11, and it's like that was, puberty was happening. There was all this like weird ball first stuff happening, and I'm like, what's going on?
Ball first stuff.
But Tony Hawk's Pro Skater came at the perfect time for me, where I was like, this is cool. I want to be cool. I want to be like that. And the music in that game and the way that they dressed and all of that stuff, it changed me. Like, I went from being this like little kid into a punk ass little preteen
Skater boy.
And I thought it was so cool. Avril Lavigne wrote a song about me.
I know, it's
actually weird. But yeah, like, I feel like that game more so than any changed my life, in the sense that I had this life and now it was different. All these other things, it's like changed my life as a video game fan or whatever. An example of that would be Crash Team Racing. Now, the reason that changed my life is I feel like that was the first time that I really played a game that I realized that I didn't just love video games. Like, thinking back to the old games, the Marios, the Crashes, the Sonics, I loved them all equally growing up.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until Crash Team Racing that I played it. I'm like, I like this better than Mario Kart 64. And I love Mario Kart 64.
You're like, I'm a traitor. What do I do?
But it was a moment when I realized that I can actually discern between these. And granted, I was really young at this time, so I know I sound stupid right now. But there was that moment where it's like, I don't just blindly love all these things equally. I can look back and actually tell you which Mario games I like better than the other ones. And
Right.
compare them to Crash or Sonic and be like, all right, the Mario is much better than these series. But when I was really little playing through them for the first time, they're all the same to me. They're all things that I loved. I love these characters. I love the games. But it wasn't until Crash Team Racing that I was like, oh my God, like, I think this is the better kart racer. I think Mario 64 is better than Crash Bandicoot. I think that Mario World is slightly better than Mario 3. And like, I could have these like deep thoughts about video games, not just, oh, I like video games. It's, I like these specific video games and here's why. And I think that was a big turning point in my life in terms of the way I think about stuff. I must be missing a whole bunch of them, but like that's the thing about games.
Brittany's Dance Beat.
Brittany's Dance Beat definitely.
That really helped your balls.
It did. The ball fur thing was huge. I actually did rent
Ball
that game for
fur. I thought you said balls first, and I was like, I don't know what the hell that means.
Oh no.
The colloquialism
Talking about the
here
fur
for
on my
San
balls,
Francisco.
right?
Now I'm with you. The peach fuzz.
Yeah.
The old walnut's getting a bit shaggy.
Good lord. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. Do you guys have any other ones you want to add to that?
I mean, yeah, we're talking about games that have like, I mean, like, you know, it's one of those. I think that's so recent, it's hard. But I mean, like, Gone Home was like, you know, really it made me feel things in a very specific way. You know, probably the most guttural emotional reaction for me recently. You know what I mean?
I feel Journey is a good one.
Yeah, Journey.
Yeah, Journey's a great example. I'm just trying to think more about the games that shifted my thinking about games. Final Fantasy IV is a good example. You know, watching my brother play that when I was young, we bought it, and I didn't know that games were capable of that much storytelling and that much depth. And that was really, really, maybe that was, even though we were playing Dragon Quest at the time, like that was really the thing where I was like, this is more than just grinding and finding shit and going to the next dungeon. This is a story with fucking death in it and all sorts of fucked up shit. And I mean, that's a real, like the beginning of the Final Fantasy IV, you're like fucking, you're terrorists. You know, like, and you don't even know that until you do the deed already. You basically blow up a fucking whole town and kill everyone in it. Sorry, the game came out in 1991. You had 24 years. You know, and I remember being a kid being like, Jesus Christ. You know what I mean? And that was the game I've told many times the story about how my brother used to wake me up after everyone went to bed, and I would sneak into his room and we would play it together. You know, and I would just watch him play, and I was like, there's betrayal in that game, and you know, Cain betrays Cecil twice. I mean, there's you know like Tella's death and the twins fucking committing suicide to save the rest of the party and stuff like that. I'm like, I didn't know. I thought we were just gonna play Mario for the rest of my life. And this game was being like, no, we have bold things to say and fucked up shit to say, you know, and you're gonna be mad at the game for killing these characters, although some of them didn't end up really dying. But at the time, it's like it's very emotional, and I remember being like, wow, that I didn't know that was capable. It's the same thing when I was talking about BioShock, where I was like, I didn't know that we could tell a story like this. You know, I didn't know it's still like BioShock still is arguably the greatest story of any game, I think, and just the environment and the environmental storytelling and how bold it was that it didn't really want you to fight and stuff like that. It didn't. Which is why BioShock Infinite was so disappointing to me. So there's games like that don't necessarily aren't congruent necessarily with my favorite games of all time. Although I've named a few games that are my games of all time.
I mean, it goes hand in hand when you're talking about something so big like that. Yeah, one that I left out, and I can't believe, is Halo, the first one. Like that game, when I think back on what are my favorite video game moments and memories, I always go back to Halo. And I earlier mentioned my little Thanksgiving weekend long things. That's Halo. You know, it's me and my friends playing these games, and that influenced who I was at that time in a lot of ways. But that really was my first multiplayer first-person shooter experience. So to me, I'll always have those memories tied to that game. But the whole shooter thing, that's been going on for years before that. I think the game that changed my life more than almost any of these games is Counter-Strike. And I don't even play Counter-Strike. But Counter-Strike stole Alfredo Diaz away from me for an entire year. Like, we had been best friends for the first, 2 years of high school, and then all of a sudden he got addicted to this game. and I just stopped seeing him. Like, and it's like, it's not even a joke. Like, it changed our friendship. It changed our dynamic. And it was really interesting that a game literally changed my life in a bad way.
Yeah.
You know, and Halo kind of brought it back for us. So thank you, Halo.
Thank you,
You
Halo.
saved our relationship.
Thank you, Mr. Chips.
Yeah. So, this topic has been sponsored by Audible. Do you love books but find that you never have time to read them?
Yes.
Well, Audible.com has the perfect solution. Get audiobooks and listen to those books you've been meaning to read while on the go. Audible.com provides over 180,000 audio programs from the leading audiobook publishers, broadcasters, entertainers, magazine and newspaper publishers, and business information providers. Their app is free and works on iOS devices, Android, and Windows Phone. You can also download and listen to it on your Kindle Fire and over 500 MP3 players. And unlike a streaming or rental service, with Audible, you actually own the books so you can access them whenever you want, even without internet access. And it has a great listen guarantee, so if you don't like the book you choose, you can exchange it at any time, no questions asked. So, go to audible.com/kfgames today to get a free audiobook of your choice and a free 30-day trial membership. Again, show some support and get a free audiobook and 30-day trial at audible.com/kfgames.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
Knocked out of the park, Tim. Good job.
Thanks, Greg.